Hey, Primal Punch here, and remember we got our stick, okay? Now what we're going to do is peel this sucker, and always cut away from yourself, alright? The trick is, take your knife and start at a deeper angle until you get under, and then just go ahead and go down to a more shallow angle. You'll take this off just like peeling a potato, just like it. Now, normally, if you've got a more wet wood, I would recommend the curing of it with the bark on, because it's going to keep it from splitting as much. You'll only have to oil the ends, but this is a relatively dry wood, so you know, for the sake of brevity, we're going to work on this right now, and I'll take the time to keep it from splitting, because I've gotten pretty good at it dealing with temperamental woods. Always cut away from yourself, and you're going to run into these little nubs. Just back up a little bit, and then just pop them down a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, and you see, you can steepen your angle if you have to, but then you'll end up with it down, and you can sand it later on after it dries. Always keep your knife nice and sharp, you know, and it makes a difference. They can probably hear you whispering advice to me. So here, we've got that started. We'll just go ahead and get this sucker going. See, hit those little nubs, just back up, and just tick a little bit off at a time, a little bit off at a time until you get it down. And you can come back at it the other way too. Right now we're just doing a real rough peeling, you know, getting it down, getting it ready. Now we'll flip her around, and you just peel clear down to the end. Now if you've got yourself a nub like this at the end, don't go too hard, because you'll hit it and you'll end up with a bunch of nicks that you've got to smooth out later, and that's a bear. Now you'll have stuff like this where you took a larger limb off. Again, just go ahead and just tick at it, just tick away at it, and take a little bit at a time, until you get it down to something approximating smoothness. And you can touch it up with sandpaper again once it dries, because as a green wood, it's going to clog your sandpaper up something fierce. So I would recommend, unless you have a surplus of sandpaper or very well-to-do, I would recommend waiting so you can get your money's worth on that sandpaper. This is actually going to make a very decent stick. I grabbed it because it was something that was available. My wife had spotted this, and now looking at it and feeling the balance of it, this is actually going to make a fairly decent fighting stick. Normally you wouldn't pick your eye with the hand holding the knife, but I've got amazing reflexes. So another thing, wear goggles if you're accident prone like myself. I didn't wear any goggles. I normally don't. I'll be honest with you, but I would like for you to. Now here, you know, just get to that, and just tick, tick, tick until you get right through. See? There's that little nub, and now you've got something that you can, you know, sand later. Now we're going to go ahead and cut this. Now this is going to need to be shaped a bit. You know, this was a saw cut, so that'll be whittled, and that might even be neat if you end up with a stick like this, you know, because most people wouldn't think of this. Take this branch and the branch that it was on, and now you've got something workable, that you've got that nub. Now for the Irish style fighting, I would hold it this way, you know, for the single stick method, and also for working it like this. Your natural instinct might be want to go like this, but it'll move better. The stick wants to be like this. You see that? The stick wants to go like that. And this is also, it's a hooking weapon. You can get behind. It's pretty slick. You got the back of a knee, snap that knee and then pull the leg out. All kinds of cool stuff. So here, I'll finish up because you guys are probably getting bored. Or not. I mean, you're welcome to turn it off. But I hope you don't, because this is really interesting stuff. You're making your own fighting tool. Now if you've got something like this, you see, where I was yakking at you and I took the saw into there, I would recommend doing it this way. So again, you're cutting away from yourself. Get those little splinters, because you'll waste a lot of sandpaper on stuff like that when you can actually get it with a little bit of knife work. Now see, I'm willing to do it this way because I've got this protecting my hand. So now, I'll just get that down a little bit. You see this? Getting it down to something approximating some kind of smoothness. And that'll also keep that from being a weak point later on the stick. You know, getting it just as smooth as humanly possible. You're not going to be able to get it perfect, you know, until you take sandpaper to it. But for right now, let's go ahead and I'll try and hurry. Sometimes I wish I had an Irish accent, like especially right now. I thought about sending away for one, but it was in the comic book right next to the sea monkeys, and I got fooled by that, like, when I was younger. They're not getting me again. You send away out of a comic book for an Irish accent, you get screwed, man. Seriously, just don't do it. And the sea monkeys, not worth it, guys. Not worth it. Alright, see, we're getting down in here. This, I just sort of get those little creases like this. I just work that out of there. It's really, you know, just a little bit at a time, a millimeter at a time, you work your way through here. And you get that neck cleaned up, and you do it without nicking your wood up too much. See? Now we've taken off what is called the bark. That's this lighter part. And then underneath, that's sapwood or cambium. And you see there's two different layers. And it's best just to get that off, because all that's going to do, if it's left on, is splinter away later. And again, you can clean this up with sandpaper later on. You know, we'll make this smooth so there's no splinters, and like that. Here we go. Now we've pretty much got this cleaned up. There's still some sapwood here, and we'll just whip that off real fast. Because, you know, why waste your sandpaper on the sapwood that is just going to splinter off anyway when you start going to town and as it dries. It's not actually part of the wood, it's part of the bark. And the cambium is, I believe, the method by which the tree sends nutrients out to its branches and everything. And it's edible on some trees. I don't know if I just mentioned that. Don't just go eat cambium though. You know your trees. That's another thing I wanted to mention. Before you go selecting a stick, know what you're looking at, because there are trees that are poisonous to deal with. You know, like yew, for instance, is a poisonous tree. And mesquite thorns have been known to fester and cause infection. Desert ironwood its own self can cause some pretty funky allergic reactions when you're sanding it, not when you're working with it regular. So know your wood. Know what you're dealing with. Most of your standard hardwoods, oaks and maples, super safe, man. You know, super safe. Best stuff to work with. Alright, we're looking good here. Next will be some sanding. And I won't bore you guys with the sanding, but you might want to be in on a little bit of this shaping. I'm going to, one of your best methods on shaping is just to start on the edge there. You've got a little smaller amount of wood and just round it around. You see what I'm doing? I'm cutting away from myself, but you just round it around, and you can also do it like this. You know, you've got something, you know, make it easy on yourself. If you've got a table and some clamps, clamp that sucker down. Then you can really go to town. I do recommend using a smaller knife when you're doing this kind of stuff, for the simple fact that it's easier to control. Alright? So, just do a little bit of shaping. I probably could have cut this off a little bit shorter, but you know what? I wanted to keep a little bit of a hook. So, there you go. You've got the idea. Thank you guys for coming by. And remember, stick punch hard.